Did you ever wonder who truly shaped the world of knowledge during the Middle Ages, from the 5th to the 15th century? Did you know that the story of learning is not just about monks in dusty scriptoria or male scholars debating in new universities? What if some of the most influential figures were women, their contributions often overlooked? Number 7. Lady Aveline of Bristol. The late 15th century in Bristol buzzed with the clamor of a thriving port. Ships laden with wool and wine, tin and textiles sailed in and out of the Avon River, connecting England to a wider world. In this bustling environment, Lady Aveline of Bristol, born Aveline Thorne, was not just a merchant's daughter, but a mind keen for the practicalities of a globalizing world. Her father, a successful wool exporter, had ensured her a basic education unusual for many girls of her time. She could read and write, not just in English, but with a passable grasp of Latin, a skill she maintained and deepened throughout her life. When she married Master Thomas Fitzwilliam, a prominent shipowner and trader, her world of learning expanded to encompass the very sinews of commerce and exploration. Lady Aveline understood that successful trade relied on more than just good ships and honest dealings. It demanded knowledge, precise and accessible. She saw the shortcomings in the crude maps used by her husband's captains, the inconsistencies in the accounting methods, and the reliance on oral traditions for complex mercantile law. This observation sparked her lifelong commitment to patronage, a commitment that diverged significantly from the more common patronage of religious texts or chivalric romances. Her focus was on the practical application of learning, on the information that allowed ships to find their way, goods to be tallied accurately, and disputes to be resolved swiftly. One of Lady Aveline's earliest and most significant projects involved the commissioning of new, highly detailed sea charts. She gathered experienced mariners from Bristol's docks, listened to their grievances about the existing charts, and then sought out skilled cartographers. It was a painstaking process. One such mapmaker, Master John of Wells, worked under her direct supervision for nearly 3 years, his workshop set up in a large chamber within the Fitzwilliam household itself. Lady Aveline would often sit with him reviewing his meticulous work, her delicate finger tracing the coastlines he was drawing, her sharp eyes spotting discrepancies. She insisted on the inclusion of specific depths, the location of dangerous shoals, and reliable markers for entering harbors, all gathered from the collective wisdom of Bristol's seasoned captains. The resulting volume of charts, known as the Bristol Portolan among sailors, became highly prized. Master John himself, in his dedicatory note within the richly illustrated volume, attributed its accuracy and utility directly to the unwavering foresight and exacting standards of the most esteemed Lady Aveline Fitzwilliam. Copies of these charts, painstakingly reproduced by scribes she employed, found their way onto the ships of many Bristol merchants, contributing to safer and more efficient voyages. Beyond navigation, Lady Aveline recognized the growing complexity of international trade. Her husband's business required tracking myriad transactions, credits and debits across different currencies and jurisdictions. Traditional methods were often slow and prone to error. She learned of new accounting methods developing in Italian city-states, particularly the system of double-entry bookkeeping. Determined to bring this efficiency to Bristol, she sought out Master Alan Davies, a young scribe who had spent time in Bruges and Florence, and had a rudimentary understanding of these new techniques. Lady Aveline provided him with funds for rare texts and supported him during his intensive study. She then commissioned him to translate and adapt the principles of double-entry accounting into a clear, concise manual accessible to English merchants. Master Alune's treatise on double-entry accounting, completed in 1488, revolutionized how many Bristol businesses managed their finances. It became a foundational text for a new generation of clerks, copied and recopied many times over. The detailed ledgers and clear financial records it fostered allowed for greater accuracy and reduced disputes, a quiet but profound transformation in the economic life of the city. Lady Aveline's patronage was not limited to individual commissions. She had a strong belief in the foundational education of the next generation of merchants and clerks. She quietly funded a small school located near the bustling Bristol docks, specifically for the sons of merchants and master craftsmen. This was not a traditional grammar school focused on classical texts. Instead, its curriculum, heavily influenced by Lady Aveline herself, emphasized practical arithmetic, the principles of sound contract law, rudimentary Latin for trade negotiations, and basic geography. She personally interviewed the prospective teachers, ensuring they possessed not only academic knowledge, but also a practical understanding of the merchant world. Chronicler Hugh, the scribe of Bristol, in his 1502 manuscript, noted that the school of Lady Aveline did more to equip the young men of Bristol for honest and profitable trade than any other institution in the realm, fostering a generation wise in numbers and shrewd in dealings. Her foresight also extended to new technologies. The latter part of the 15th century saw the nascent stages of printing across Europe. While not yet widespread in England, Lady Aveline was fascinated by its potential. She learned of William Caxton's press and understood the power it held for rapid dissemination of information. She provided significant financial backing to a German printer, Master Johann Müller, who settled in Bristol in 1495. With her funds, he established one of the first printing presses outside of London, initially focusing on commercial documents, shipping manifests, bills of lading, and legal contracts. It was not a grand academic press, but a practical one, driven by the needs of the poor. Lady Aveline, personally freed many of the early imprints, ensuring accuracy in the financial figures and legal wording. Her support laid the groundwork for Bristol to become a significant center for printing, not just for books, but for the essential paperwork of commerce. The records of the Bristol Printers Guild, established years later, acknowledge her as a foundational figure in bringing the art of mechanical inscription to the city, recognizing her early and sustained investment in its development. Lady Aveline of Bristol, a woman of means in a man's world, used her wealth and intellect to cultivate learning that directly impacted the economic engine of her city. She saw knowledge not as an abstract pursuit for the cloister, but as a vital tool for navigation, for honest accounting, for effective trade, and for the advancement of society. Her legacy was not in grand university halls or illuminated devotional books, but in the precision of a sailor's chart, the clarity of a ledger, the practical education of a merchant's son, and the efficiency of the printed word, all of which quietly propelled Bristol, and by extension, England, into a new era of global commerce. Her contributions, often unseen in the annals of high scholarship, were fundamental to the expansion of practical knowledge in late medieval England. Number 6. Dame Constance of Montfort. The late 14th century was a time of immense challenge and change across Europe, and nowhere was this more apparent than in the field of medicine. The Black Death had swept through the continent, exposing the limitations of traditional medical knowledge. It was into this crucible of necessity and intellectual ferment that Dame Constance of Montfort, a woman of unusual intellect and considerable means, carved out her unique role as a patron of learning. Born into a minor noble family in Brittany, Constance was widowed young, her husband perishing in a skirmish, leaving her with a significant dowry and no desire for remarriage. She chose instead a life of quiet study, drawing upon her family's modest but well-stocked library, a rare privilege for women of her time. Her early fascination with the natural world, particularly the healing properties of plants, quickly blossomed into a deeper quest for medical understanding. Dame Constance saw the desperate need for more effective remedies and a more systematic approach to healing. She knew that much of the most advanced medical knowledge resided in Arabic texts preserved and elaborated upon by Islamic scholars. These texts, built upon the foundations of ancient Greek medicine, offered insights far beyond what was commonly practiced in Western Europe. Determined to bridge this knowledge gap, she embarked on a daring and costly project, the commissioning of translations of key Arabic medical treatises into Latin and, more remarkably, into the vernacular French. This was not a simple task. It required finding scholars who not only possessed a deep command of Arabic, Latin, and French, but also an understanding of medical concepts. One such scholar was Master Jean de Corbie, a physician and linguist who had studied in Toledo. Dame Constance provided him with a generous stipend and access to her growing collection of Arabic manuscripts, acquired through a network of merchants and monastic contacts. Master Jean, working under her direct patronage, produced a monumental translation of Avicenna's Canon of Medicine into French, a text previously available only in Latin. This vernacular translation, completed in 1385, made the vast encyclopedic knowledge of Avicenna accessible to a wider audience of physicians, apothecaries, and even literate lay healers, a significant step in the democratizing of complex medical information. In the preface to his translation, Master Jean explicitly credited Dame Constance, stating that without the wisdom, generosity, and persistent urging of the Lady Constance, this labor of enlightenment would not confine to translation. She had a profound interest in practical anatomy, a subject often shrouded in superstition and limited by religious prescriptions against dissecting human bodies. While public dissections were rare and largely confined to universities, Dame Constance provided discreet financial support to physicians who were willing to undertake private anatomical studies. One such individual was Dr. Alaric of Montpellier, a surgeon renowned for his precise hands and inquisitive mind. Under Constance's patronage, Dr. Alaric conducted a series of carefully documented dissections focusing on the circulatory and nervous systems. These were not public spectacles, but meticulous studies, recorded in detailed anatomical drawings and accompanying notes. Dame Constance commissioned a gifted illuminator known only as Brother Simon to create stunningly accurate anatomical plates based on Dr. Alaric's observations. The resulting work, the Montfort Anatomy, contained illustrations that were far more detailed and lifelike than most contemporary European anatomical texts, drawing praise from the few physicians who were granted access to its pages. Sister Agnes of the Poor, Clare's a chronicler who recorded significant events in the region, subtly hinted at these endeavors in her 1401 Chronica Minor, writing of Dame Constance's uncommon pursuit of the inner workings of the human frame for the betterment of all suffering souls. Her personal library grew to be a remarkable collection, not just of translated works, but of original herbals, pharmaceutical texts, and even astrological treatises that were then considered integral to medical practice. She tirelessly sought out manuscripts from across Europe, employing agents to scour monastic libraries and private collections. Her copy of the Herbal of Pseudo Apuleius, acquired from an abbey in Bavaria, was meticulously cross-referenced. With local botanical knowledge she gathered through her own extensive walks in the forests and fields of Brittany. She commissioned a local scribe, Master Renard, to compile the Montfort Herbal, a compendium of medicinal plants, their properties and preparation methods, based on both ancient texts and local folk wisdom, meticulously illustrated. This book was a practical guide, not a theoretical treatise, designed to be used by those on the ground caring for the sick. Dame Constance also harbored a nascent interest in early experimental chemistry, particularly in the realm of distillation and the preparation of complex remedies. She funded a small laboratory within her manor, staffed by Master Giles, a former apothecary from Paris with an interest in alchemy. This was not the pursuit of gold, but a methodical exploration of how to extract the essence of plants, create potent tinctures, and purify substances for medicinal use. Master Giles' notes preserved among Constance's papers reveal a systematic approach to experimentation, documenting yields, temperatures, and observed effects. while many such endeavors were often dismissed as mere alchemy or sorcery. Dame Constance's focus was resolutely practical, to create more effective medicines. She supported Giles through years of trial and error, his successes and failures recorded with the same meticulous detail as her commissioned anatomical drawings. Her support for such unorthodox research demonstrated a pioneering spirit, a willingness to push the boundaries of conventional wisdom in the pursuit of knowledge that could alleviate suffering. Dame Constance of Montfort, through her quiet yet determined efforts, fostered a new era of medical inquiry. She recognized that genuine healing required more than prayers and traditional remedies. It demanded rigorous study, access to diverse knowledge, and a willingness to explore new avenues. Her legacy lay in the widespread dissemination of advanced medical texts, the fostering of anatomical understanding, and the courageous support for experimental approaches to medicine. She was a beacon of intellectual curiosity in a time when such pursuits for a woman, especially in fields like anatomy and protochemistry, were exceedingly rare. Her name may not echo through the grand halls of medieval universities, but her influence surely resonated in the sick rooms and apothecaries of Brittany, quietly saving lives and advancing the cause of genuine medical learning. Number 5. Duchess Eleanor of Burgundy. The early 14th century saw the gradual emergence of universities as centers of intellectual life, growing beyond their monastic and cathedral school origins. Amidst this academic blossoming, Duchess Eleanor of Burgundy, a woman of formidable intellect and strategic vision, stood as a pivotal patron of higher learning. Born into a powerful ducal family, she was educated well beyond the norm for noblewomen, her tutors exposing her to not only the traditional Latin and rhetoric, but also to early philosophical texts and legal principles. Upon her marriage to Duke Henry of Burgundy, she became a central figure in the court, admired for her sharp mind and administrative prowess, particularly in managing the vast ducal estates. Duchess Eleanor understood that the future strength of Burgundy, and indeed Europe, lay in the cultivation of intellect and the rigorous training of scholars. She saw the potential for the local university in Dijon, then a nascent institution, to become a true beacon of knowledge. Her patronage was not simply a matter of donating money. It was an active hands-on involvement in shaping the academic landscape. She made significant endowments to the University of Dijon, not as a single grand gesture, but as a sustained commitment over decades. These funds were specifically allocated to the establishment of new chairs in the faculties of logic, philosophy, and civil law. She personally vetted candidates for these positions, often engaging them in deep theological or philosophical discussions to assess their intellectual rigor. She demanded that the professors she funded possess not only profound knowledge, but also the ability to inspire and instruct. The university's official records, the Archivum Universitatis Divisionensis, contain multiple entries detailing her annual contributions, meticulously itemized for the salaries of specific professors and the acquisition of new texts. Eleanor's intellectual curiosity extended deeply into the complex philosophical debates of her era. She believed that rigorous logical inquiry was essential for sound governance and theological understanding. She commissioned lengthy and intricate commentaries on the works of Aristotle, particularly his Metaphysics and Nicomachean Ethics, texts that were central to scholastic thought. She sought out Master Anselm de Bruges, a renowned logician who had studied in Paris, to lead this ambitious project. Duchess Eleanor provided Master Anselm with a dedicated team of scribes and access to the Duke's extensive library, as well as funds to acquire rare manuscripts from across Europe. The resulting Commentaries on the Metaphysics by Master Gerard, a multi-volume work completed over 7 years, became a standard reference for students and scholars at Dijon and beyond, known for its clarity and depth. It solidified Dijon's reputation as a center for Aristotelian studies. Chronicler John de Froissart, in his extensive chronicles, briefly mentions Duke Henry's court as a place of intellectual vigor, subtly crediting the Duchess's deep engagement with matters of mind and spirit. Beyond established philosophical texts, Duchess Eleanor also expressed a keen interest in the emerging field of natural law and its implications for governance and justice. She commissioned a comprehensive treatise on natural law, a work that sought to reconcile ancient Roman legal principles with Christian morality and contemporary societal norms. This was a Calemberid project involving not just legal scholars but also theologians and philosophers, convened regularly at her court. The Duchess herself often participated in the lively disputations, challenging assumptions and pushing for greater clarity in the arguments. This treatise became a vital resource for the legal faculty at Dijon, influencing generations of jurists trained in Burgundy. A dedication to this topic underscored her belief that a strong and just society was built upon sound legal and philosophical foundations. To support the growing academic output and the increasing demand for scholarly texts, Duchess Eleanor established and funded a dedicated scriptorium within the university precincts. This was not a general scriptorium for all types of texts, but one specifically focused on academic works, philosophical treatises, theological commentaries, and legal compendia. She ensured it was staffed by university-trained scribes who understood the nuances of academic language and the precision required for copying complex arguments. She also invested in high-quality parchment and inks, recognizing that the physical quality of the books reflected the importance of their contents. The scriptorium, under her patronage, became a model of efficiency and scholarly accuracy, producing numerous copies of foundational texts for the university's library and for the personal collections of its professors. The meticulous records kept by the university's bursar detail the precise expenditures on parchment, ink, and scribes' wages, all directly attributable to Duchess Eleanor's persistent funding. Duchess Eleanor of Burgundy was more than a benefactor. She was an architect of intellectual growth. She saw the university not as a passive recipient of donations, but as a living, breathing entity that needed careful, nurturing, clear direction, and sustained investment. Her influence ensured that Dijon became a respected center for scholastic inquiry, attracting scholars and students from across the region. Her legacy was etched, not only in the stone of new university buildings, but more profoundly in the minds of the scholars she supported, the students she inspired, and the rigorous intellectual traditions she helped to establish. Her unwavering commitment to higher learning quietly but powerfully shaped the academic landscape of 14th century Burgundy, fostering a climate where logic, philosophy, and law could flourish. Number 4. Countess Matilda of Champagne. In the bustling, culturally vibrant court of Champagne during the late 12th century, learning and the arts often intertwined, and a central figure in this dynamic was Countess Matilda of Champagne. Sister to King Louis VII of France and wife to Count Henry I, she held significant lands and immense influence. While often celebrated for her patronage of the troubadours and her role in fostering the era's celebrated chivalric romances, Matilda's commitment to learning extended far beyond the poetic and the performative. Her curiosity spanned the realms of history, geography, and the nascent stirrings of natural philosophy, making her a less conventional but profoundly influential patron of intellectual endeavors. Countess Matilda understood the power of narrative, both for entertainment and for preserving the memory of her lineage. Her court was a hub for some of the most celebrated poets and storytellers of the era, who created the famous chansons de geste and lyrical romances. However, her interest was not solely in fictional tales of knights and ladies. She also commissioned serious historical chronicles and detailed genealogies of noble families, especially her own and those allied with the House of Champagne. She believed that a clear understanding of the past, meticulously documented, was essential for legitimizing power and understanding the present. One of the most significant works commissioned by her was the Chronicle of the Counts of Champagne, a multi-volume history meticulously compiled by Geoffrey the Chronicler, a scholar she brought to her court specifically for this purpose. This chronicle, drawing on charters, legal documents, and oral traditions, presented a comprehensive history of the county, establishing its legitimacy and celebrating its achievements. Geoffrey, in his introductory remarks, explicitly lauded Countess Matilda's unwavering commitment to truth and memory, which alone made this arduous undertaking possible. This historical work became a foundational text for later historians of the region. Matilda's curiosity was not confined to human history. She also displayed a keen interest in the natural world and the accurate depiction of landscapes. She supported cartographers and geographers, commissioning detailed maps of her own extensive lands and the complex network of trade routes that crisscrossed Champagne. This was a practical necessity for administering her vast territories and for facilitating the famous Champagne fairs, which drew merchants from across Europe. She funded the creation of large, meticulously drawn maps, not mere artistic representations, but tools for governance and commerce. One such map, the Grand Chart of Champagne, depicted not only towns and rivers, but also forests, fields, and even the locations of key markets, a rare level of detail for its time. It was a testament to her belief that accurate knowledge of one's domain was paramount. These maps were often kept in the Count's treasury, but were also copied by scribes for administrators in various parts of the county. Furthermore, Countess Matilda's patronage extended to scholars who explored the natural world and early scientific ideas. While this was not a prevalent form of patronage for noble women, she engaged with thinkers who were interested in astronomy, mathematics, and the properties of materials. She sought out individuals like Maître Raoul de Troyes, an academic who, while versed in theology, also possessed a deep interest in numerical calculations and the movements of celestial bodies. She provided him with texts and instruments, encouraging him to pursue his studies. Maître Raoul's Treatise on Spherical Astronomy, a work that synthesized Arab and Greek knowledge with Christian cosmology, received her full backing. Though largely theoretical, it represented her openness to forms of knowledge that were distinct from the traditional humanities. The manuscript of this treatise, preserved in a later royal library, contains a dedicatory preface acknowledging the discerning mind and generous hand of Countess Matilda, who championed knowledge in all its forms. Her court was unique in its blend of high culture and genuine intellectual inquiry. She understood that literature could be a vehicle for knowledge, not just entertainment. The romances she commissioned, while fictional, often contained detailed descriptions of weaponry, siegecraft, and geographical locations, reflecting a subtle didactic purpose alongside their narrative function. She saw to it that the scribes she employed were skilled not only in calligraphy, but also in understanding the content they copied, ensuring accuracy in the more technical passages. Courtly environment she fostered created a synergy where poets and scholars could exchange ideas, where the tales of knights and ladies could sit alongside serious historical chronicles and geographical surveys. Countess Matilda of Champagne, often remembered as a muse for poets, was in fact a powerful intellectual force in her own right. Her patronage was multifaceted, reflecting a deep and broad curiosity. She ensured that the history of her lands was meticulously recorded, that her territories were accurately mapped, and that scholars of the natural world received the support they needed. Her court, while famous for its chivalric romances, was also a quiet crucible for serious intellectual pursuits, a testament to her discerning eye and her enduring commitment to the advancement of knowledge in all its forms. Her legacy is not merely in the flourishing of poetry, but in the rigorous pursuit of historical and geographical truth, a foundational aspect of medieval learning that her patronage undeniably advanced. Number 3. Queen Isabella of Castile and León. The early 13th century in the Iberian Peninsula was a melting pot of cultures. a place where Christian, Muslim, and Jewish traditions intersected, often contentiously, but also productively. Queen Isabella of Castile and Leon, a ruler known for her political acumen and deep piety, recognized that the intellectual wealth of this diverse land, particularly the vast knowledge preserved in Arabic and Hebrew text, was a treasure to be harnessed for her kingdom. Her patronage was strategic, aimed at consolidating royal power, fostering legal reform, and elevating religious devotion through meticulously crafted texts. She understood that true governance required not only military strength, but also an intellectual foundation. Isabella's most significant project in the realm of learning was the establishment of a royal scriptorium in Toledo, a city famed for its long history as a center of translation. Unlike earlier, more informal translation efforts, Isabella's scriptorium was a structured, royally funded institution. She brought together a diverse group of scholars, Christian monks, Jewish rabbis, and Muslim savants, all fluent in multiple languages, particularly Arabic, Latin, and the emerging Castilian vernacular. Her primary focus for this scriptorium was the translation of legal codes and historical accounts from Arabic sources. She understood that Muslim legal thought, built on centuries of scholarship, contained sophisticated principles that could inform her own kingdom's legal reforms. One notable work was the translation of parts of the Risala of Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani, a foundational text of Maliki jurisprudence, which provided new perspectives on property law and contractual agreements. This was not about adopting foreign law wholesale, but about understanding and adapting principles that could strengthen her own legal framework. Padre Pedro of Toledo, a chronicler at the royal court, recorded in his Chronica Regum Castelli that Queen Isabella's wisdom in drawing from all sources of knowledge, whether sacred or profane, for the betterment of her realm, was unparalleled. Beyond legal texts, Isabella's scriptorium also translated significant historical chronicles from Arabic, particularly those detailing the history of the Iberian Peninsula and its various kingdoms. She sought to understand the lineage and conquests of her predecessors and opponents, believing that a comprehensive historical understanding was crucial for legitimate rule. These translated histories provided her court with invaluable insights into the complex political landscape of the peninsula, offering perspectives often absent from Latin chronicles. Rabbi Abraham of Seville, one of the key translators in the Toledo scriptorium, oversaw the rendition of several Andalusian historical works, contributing significantly to Castilian understanding of the region's past. However, Isabella's piety was as central to her patronage as her political pragmatism. She was a devout Catholic, and her court reflected this devotion. She commissioned sumptuously illuminated Bibles, psalters, and books of hours, intended not just for her personal devotion, but also as gifts to powerful nobles and religious institutions, reinforcing her spiritual authority. These manuscripts were exquisite works of art, employing the finest parchment, brilliant pigments, and intricate gold leaf. Isabella's royal psalter, completed around 1228, is a testament to this patronage. It contained not only the traditional psalms, but also a meticulously illustrated calendar and an array of prayers, all rendered with an unparalleled level of craftsmanship. The scribes and illuminators who worked on these projects were among the most skilled in Europe, their talents nurtured and sustained by Isabella's consistent funding and high standard. She would often inspect the work herself, demanding perfection in both the Latin text and the accompanying artwork. Queen Isabella also understood the importance of a well-educated nobility. She founded a small school within the royal palace itself, designed specifically for the children of her closest courtiers and favored noble families. This was not a large public institution, but an intimate setting where young nobles, both boys and girls, received a rigorous education. Curriculum, personally overseen by the Queen, focused on Latin, history, rhetoric, and arithmetic, preparing them for roles in royal administration and court life. While the boys might go on to universities, the girls, often destined for marriage, received a level of intellectual training that was rare for their gender. The purpose was to cultivate a literate, articulate, and well-informed nobility who could serve the crown effectively. This emphasis on educating her court, even its younger members, demonstrated her long-term vision for a knowledgeable and capable ruling class. Furthermore, Isabella actively supported legal scholars in their efforts to codify local laws and implement new judicial systems throughout her kingdom. She understood that a unified and coherent body of law was essential for a strong state. She provided scholars with access to royal archives and commissioned them to travel across the kingdom, gathering local customs and ordinances. This intensive work laid the groundwork for later Castilian legal reforms, creating a more consistent and equitable justice system across her diverse territories. Her insistence on clarity and consistency in legal texts marked a significant step towards modern jurisprudence in Castile. Queen Isabella of Castile and Leon was a patron whose vision transcended mere acquisition of books. She orchestrated a sophisticated system of learning, drawing on the diverse intellectual traditions of her realm. Her royal scriptorium was a furnace of translation and intellectual exchange. Her illuminated manuscripts were unparalleled expressions of piety and artistry, and her court school fostered a generation of educated nobles. Her commitment to legal reform and historical understanding solidified the foundations of her kingdom. Isabella's legacy is not simply one of political strength, but also of profound intellectual cultivation, a queen who understood that knowledge was the ultimate pillar of power. Number 2. Abbess Heloise of Fontevraud. In the heart of the 11th century, the Abbey of Fontevraud in the Loire Valley was a place of unparalleled spiritual and intellectual dynamism, largely thanks to the remarkable leadership of Abbess Heloise. Born into a powerful noble family and sent to the monastery at a young age, Heloise rose through the ranks, her intellect and administrative acumen evident from her earliest days. When she became Abbess of Fontevraud, a unique double monastery housing both monks and nuns under the rule of an abbess, she transformed it into a veritable powerhouse of monastic scholarship. Preserving classical texts, Abbess Heloise understood that the strength of a religious community lay not only in its spiritual devotion, but also in its intellectual rigor. Her first major undertaking was the ambitious expansion of Fontevraud's library and scriptorium. Prior to her abbacy, the collection was respectable, but not exceptional. Heloise embarked on a systematic campaign to acquire manuscripts rare and common from across Europe. She dispatched trusted monks and nuns to other monastic houses, to Cluny, to Mont Saint-Michel, even to distant Italian monasteries, with a clear mandate to identify and painstakingly copy texts that were either missing from Fontevraud's collection. Brother Thomas of Fontevraud, a monastic chronicler, noted in his Annals Fontesabraldi that Heloise's tireless quest for knowledge filled our shelves and enlightened our minds, making our house a beacon of learning for all Christendom. The scriptorium at Fontevraud flourished under her direct and demanding supervision. Heloise was not content with mere reproduction. She insisted on the highest standards of calligraphy, accuracy, and illumination. She personally reviewed many of the newly copied texts, ensuring that the Latin was impeccable and that any discrepancies between source manuscripts were noted. She also encouraged the development of new illumination styles, commissioning works that combined spiritual symbolism with delicate artistry. One of the most cherished creations of her scriptorium was the Fontevraud Florilegium, a compilation of excerpts from classical authors, patristic writings, and contemporary theological commentaries, chosen for their intellectual merit and spiritual insight. This Florilegium was not just a collection of wisdom. It was a testament to the diverse intellectual interests fostered under her rule. Beyond the copying and preservation of existing knowledge, Abbess Heloise actively commissioned new theological commentaries and liturgical books. She believed that a deeper understanding of Scripture and the liturgy was essential for the spiritual well-being of our community. Sister Benedicta, a gifted scholar within the monastic community, received Heloise's full backing for her extensive commentary on the Book of Revelation. This was a bold undertaking, as apocalyptic texts were often subject to varied and sometimes unorthodox interpretations. Heloise provided Sister Benedicta with access to the most extensive collection of patristic commentaries and encouraged a rigorous, reasoned approach to the challenging text. The resulting commentary became a significant work within monastic circles, admired for its scholarly depth and spiritual insight, demonstrating Heloise's commitment to original theological contributions. Particularly forward-thinking aspect of Heloise's patronage was her support for the study of Greek, and to a lesser extent Hebrew within the monastery. While Latin was the lingua franca of medieval scholarship, Heloise recognized that direct access to the original Greek texts of the New Testament and the Septuagint, as well as the Hebrew of the Old Testament, could lead to a more profound and accurate understanding of the Scriptures. She brought in itinerant scholars, often from regions with closer ties to Byzantium or the Jewish intellectual tradition, to teach these languages to a select group of monks and nuns. This was a rare and highly specialized endeavor in Western Europe during the 11th century. Her rationale was clear. To truly know the Word of God, she was recorded to have said, one must draw from its purest spring. This commitment to original languages set Fontevraud apart and allowed its scholars to engage with biblical exegesis on a more profound level than many of their contemporaries. Abbess Heloise's dedication to intellectual pursuits was not confined to theological or classical texts. She also ensured that practical knowledge necessary for the running of a large monastic estate was meticulously recorded and studied. This included treatises on agriculture, estate management, and even the medicinal properties of herbs grown in the abbey's gardens. These texts, while not as grand as theological commentaries, were vital for the self-sufficiency and economic stability of Fontevraud. She fostered a culture where knowledge was valued in all its forms, from the most abstract theological debate to the most practical aspect of daily life. Abbess Heloise of Fontevraud was a true intellectual powerhouse, a visionary leader who understood the profound connection between spiritual depth and intellectual rigor. She created a monastic environment where learning flourished, where ancient texts were preserved, new theological insights were forged, and rare linguistic skills were cultivated. Her legacy extended far beyond the walls of Fontevraud, influencing other monastic communities and ensuring that a significant portion of the West's intellectual heritage was not lost during a period of considerable flux. Her profound and sustained patronage ensured that Fontevraud remained a vibrant center of learning, a testament to her enduring commitment to the life of the mind. Number 1. Empress Sophia of Byzantium. In the tumultuous early 7th century, as the Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantium, faced relentless external pressures, Empress Sophia stood as a formidable patron of learning, ensuring the survival and proliferation of classical knowledge during a period of immense intellectual fragility. Her reign, often overshadowed by military conflicts, was quietly marked by an intense commitment to preserving the intellectual heritage of Greece and Rome. Born into an aristocratic family and married to Emperor Justin II, Sophia was known for her sharp intellect and administrative capabilities, often acting as a co-ruler in all but name. She understood that the grandeur of an empire was not solely defined by its armies and territories, but also by the richness of its culture and the depth of its knowledge. Empress Sophia's most critical endeavor was the systematic preservation of ancient Greek, philosophical, and scientific texts. The Library of Constantinople, a descendant of the great libraries of antiquity, was vast but vulnerable. Sophia initiated a major project to fund the meticulous copying of foundational works by Plato, Aristotle, Galen, Euclid, and countless other luminaries. She recognized that without active reproduction, these precious scrolls and codices, some already centuries old, would inevitably succumb to decay or accident. She employed a large team of scribes, many trained in specialized calligraphic schools, providing them with ample supplies of parchment and ink, and ensuring they worked in optimal conditions. Sophia's Codex of Galen, a richly illuminated volume of the complete works of the ancient physician, is a testament to this effort, its vibrant illustrations and carefully copied Greek text serving as a standard for future reproductions. Master Leo the Grammarian, a scholar, tasked with overseeing these copying efforts, frequently wrote in his private correspondences, now housed in the monastic archives of Mount Athos, of Empress Sophia's unwavering resolve to safeguard the wisdom of the ancients, ensuring its passage to generations yet unborn. Pioneering aspect of her patronage was the establishment of a dedicated house of translators within the imperial palace in Constantinople. This was not a passive library. It was an active intellectual hub. Sophia gathered scholars from across the vast Byzantine Empire and beyond, including Syriac Christians, Armenians, and even early Arabic-speaking scholars from the burgeoning Islamic world. Her vision was to translate crucial texts that were either lost in Greek but preserved in other languages, or texts that represented new knowledge developing in neighboring cultures. For example, she commissioned the translation of significant Syriac commentaries on Aristotle, which provided unique insights into logic and natural philosophy. She also fostered the translation of early Arabic medical and astronomical treatises, recognizing their practical value despite the political tensions of the time. This cross-cultural exchange of knowledge, facilitated by Sophia's direct funding and encouragement, allowed Byzantium to absorb and adapt new intellectual currents, keeping its own scholarly traditions vibrant and innovative. The Imperial Digest of Roman Law, a new compilation and translation of key legal principles from Latin into Greek, designed for broader administrative use, was another product of this house of translators commissioned directly by Sophia for the benefit of her legal administrators. Sophia's interest extended particularly to practical texts, recognizing their importance for the administration and well-being of the empire. She focused on commissioning copies and translations of engineering manuals, agricultural treatises, and military handbooks. She understood that a strong infrastructure, efficient food production, and effective defense were built on sound practical knowledge. A notable commission was a detailed treatise on irrigation and water management, translated from a Persian text, which offered advanced techniques for water distribution that could benefit the empire's agricultural heartlands. These practical works, often overlooked in favor of philosophy or theology, received the same meticulous attention and funding as her more celebrated commissions. Empress Sophia also amassed a remarkable personal library, one that mirrored her broad intellectual curiosity. This library, kept within the imperial palace, was not a mere collection of prestige objects. It was a working library filled with the texts she had commissioned, rare acquisitions, and even personal commentaries penned by her favored scholars. She often consulted these texts, engaging in discussions with her scholars and advisors, demonstrating a profound personal commitment to the pursuit of knowledge. Upon her death, a significant portion of this private collection became part of the larger Imperial Library of Constantinople, further enriching its holdings and ensuring their continued accessibility to future generations. The renowned chronicler Procopius, though often focused on military and political events, subtly acknowledged the intellectual climate of the Byzantine court, a climate undoubtedly nurtured by empresses like Sophia. Empress Sophia of Byzantium was a beacon of intellectual light during a period of immense challenge. Her proactive patronage in preserving classical texts, fostering cross-cultural translation, and promoting practical knowledge ensured that the flame of ancient learning continued to burn brightly in the East. She was a strategic patron, understanding that knowledge was a vital asset for imperial stability and cultural continuity. Her legacy is not just in the manuscripts that bear the marks of her patronage, but in the very survival of countless ancient texts that would otherwise have been lost to time, ensuring their eventual rediscovery and influence on the Western world. She was a silent guardian of the intellectual heritage of an age, a forgotten female patron whose impact resonates through centuries of scholarship.